Welcome to the Flawed Workshop Podcast with me, your host, Nancy Art Music.
And me, your co-host, Alex Roberts.
This week, we're talking to Stephen about what it's like to be a full-time writer. We discuss topics like procrastination, time management, and how difficult it can be sometimes to share your work with others and get feedback and criticism. I'd also like to take this moment to highlight that you can leave us a voice note using the link in the show notes that goes to Anchor. There you can ask us a question, leave us a suggestion, or give us a comment. Let us know who you might like on the podcast, whether it is yourself, or a friend, or a big-time celebrity that you'd like us to try and get. But without further ado, here's our conversation with Stephen. Hi, Stephen, and thank you for joining us on the Flawed Workshop Podcast. Woohoo!
Hi. I mean, we have been speaking for like 10 minutes, but yes.
Cool. So, thank you for coming and speaking with us 20 minutes prior to just now, and for the next little while also. But yes, I know that you're a writer and you're recently kind of working on a project. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah, like you said, I'm an aspiring writer, I like to say, because, you know,
Woo, aspiring.
I know, it's great, right? I would like to be a full-time writer, and because of the pandemic and, you know, the world sort of grinding to a halt a little bit, I thought it was a good time to sort of pack up my job, and because I have some a bit saved up, and focus full-time on writing. And in that regard, at the moment, I'm writing 3 stories concurrently, which is, for anybody listening to this, don't do that. It's a terrible idea. But you know, that's just how my mind works. There's a front of chaos going on. But that's neither here nor there.
If it helps, I've got 3 collections on the go at the moment. I've got 2 poetry collections and a short story collection. So
that sounds like hell.
Well, you haven't read it yet, you know.
What I meant to say was it sounds like a very wonderful endeavor. Actually,
what an arduous task you've set yourself.
I know. There you go. It's much better. But
both of you are incredible to me, because writing looks really difficult. To me, it looks like you guys probably stare at your pages on the computer or wherever else, and it seems terrifying.
Undoubtedly, yeah. It's
yeah. I mean, my eyesight has literally gotten worse the last 2 months from staring at the computer screen too long and just going, okay, this doesn't work. Let's try something else. Oh no, I've just completely wasted an hour writing terrible stuff.
It's when you turn around and suddenly it's dark outside and you think, when did that happen?
I mean, my most productive hours are like 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's like, oh no, it's light outside. Where did that go?
Tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing. What kind of writing is it?
I should probably preface this first by saying that over the years I've compiled like lots of different ideas that I've jotted down like notepads on the computer, and the aim that I always had, and before anybody says it, I did this before I'd watch a single Marvel movie, so don't come at me for that. But this general idea is that all these stories do connect in some way or other. So I have like thriller ideas, I've had detective ideas, like supernatural, yada yada, and they all connect in some fashion. They're all in sort of like shared multiverse, as it were, and things cross over and what have you. But the ones that I'm concentrating on now at the moment, there's 3 that are sort of vaguely connected in like a very vague sort of way. There's one that I started. I started properly when I left work in January, end of January. That is, the long and short of it is that it's about a woman who's, you know, involved in a train explosion, and she gets caught up in sort of supernatural whatever's and things. But these creatures are sort of coming through from another dimension, and she sort of gets wrapped up in trying to stop these things without knowing what the hell is going on. And trying to come to terms with, you know, the love of her life dying, and realizing that he might not have been as good of a person as she thought he was, sort of trying to discover herself outside of that relationship as well.
In my mind, it's immediately gone to The Railway Children meets Ghostbusters.
I mean, if the Ghostbusters blew up some people in the underneath a tunnel in New Cross, then
We
that
live
would
near
be.
we live near New Cross. Is that anything personal or?
No, it's just because it's the only tunnel I could think of, and I needed a tunnel. So, like the original draft was, they were going to like on their honeymoon to Stansted Airport, but then I forgot where the tunnel for Stansted Airport on that route was, so I had to like change everything and change them to go into Gatwick, which was annoying. But yeah, that's the hazards of writing.
It almost sounds too real. It's like your plans in real life change based on like, just like, oh, we can't travel to this place. We now need to figure out alternative transportation.
Well, just talk about that. So I've got it with mine. I do have a very slow burning novel on the go, and I was doing some research for an event that happens in it, and it's a very specific type of drug overdose that happens to a character. And of course, I then spent like 2-3 days just typing in constantly just like drug names and drug overdose symptoms and things. And I was there thinking, this is definitely going to flag somewhere by someone. Have you had that sort of thing with your research?
I saved a website page, but it's not like a dark wiki or something. But it's like for like writers that, gives them like drug names and effects and gun types and all that.
Okay.
And I can't find it, which is really annoying, because when I'm trying to find like a gun type or bullet type or specific drug, like you said, and you're typing into Google, it's like, oh boy.
It's when it auto completes to say where to find.
So, oh no, they're watching me. I'm probably on some CIA list somewhere.
One of the main things that we have is that we talk about is people finding the balance between working and then trying to set themselves up creatively. And you've gone sort of a step further than most people we've spoken to so far, which is you've gone out, quit your job, and full-time living on savings at the moment, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that happened, why that happened, and sort of any advice that you would have for other people, if any?
Strategy and planning, if there was any involved.
Yeah.
I suppose it depends on your point of view. I'm lucky or unlucky enough to still be living with my parents. I've been working for a couple of years now, and I have the money where, I can pay for everything. It's fine. I don't pay rent, so yay. But I pay for everything else. So, I'm in a comfortable position that most people won't be able to be in, and I'm fully aware of that. And it would be sort of obtuse isn't the word, but it would be unfair of me to say, all right, you have these ideas, you want to be a writer, you want to be a filmmaker, whatever, just pack up your job. Don't care about anything else. Don't care about paying your car insurance. Don't care about paying rent or anything like that. Just go fulfill your dream, because it's not something that most people can actually do. So
you're very aware of the situation, but you're able to be in a position where you can take advantage of it for your own gain, in a way.
Yeah, I mean,
without making it sound as selfish as that. Does that? But you know what I mean?
No, I mean, I totally understand what you mean. I did have a conversation with my colleagues, like the week before I left, and it was lunchtime, and we were just sitting around and talking about what I was going to do and things like that. And that did come up, and because he comes from New Zealand, so his situation is a lot different, and he wasn't the job that we're working isn't something that we wanted to do, to put it politely. We all have different things that we want to do, and obviously he wasn't in a situation where he would be able to just pull away and do what he wanted to do, whereas I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I did feel like at pains to say that, yeah, I do understand that I am in an unfortunate position, which I don't know whether I needed to or not. But I am taking advantage of it, because at the end of the day, I want to be a full-time writer, and I am not disciplined enough, I know this for a fact, to do both at the same time, to juggle both at the same time effectively.
Yeah.
I know, I wish I was. A lot of people are, but I just can't do it. And I realized that, particularly like with the job where I was working at a charity, and during the Christmas period, we have like a project that helps, vulnerable people, etc., etc. I won't go into too much detail on it, but it's an extremely stressful time of the year. And that was the fourth year I'd done it, or fifth, I can't even remember now. And it just takes so much emotional toll on you, and you feel absolutely exhausted as soon as you come in work. And I just couldn't do it. I think at that point I realized if I actually want to make something of myself in the avenue that I want to go down, then I have to pack it in, unfortunately.
Because we often talk about finding the balance between work and play, so to speak. But that balance is different for every single person, and you're never going to find it immediately overnight. It's not going to be the case that you can start a new job and at the exact same time have the energy and the time and the ability to do all of your writing projects or your art projects and start up your own small business. But just because someone else is able to manage a part-time job and part-time running their own business does not mean that you have to do that. And it does not mean that that is the most efficient way for you to work. And you need to work out your own path with it and your own balance.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because the previous episode we were speaking to an artist called Izzy. She's done a similar thing where she's quit her previous sort of 9-to-5, but she's got a part-time job to support herself whilst also running her business. But then now she's also pursuing education alongside of all those things. But it's just an example of how different people are and how everybody kind of does things. Sorry to rewind all the way back, but how did you start writing? When did you realize that you liked to write?
Yeah, so I don't know if this will destroy the mystique of the podcast a little bit, but you did send me like a brief of the questions beforehand.
No more than we have.
Fair enough. But I did give this some thought because at first I honestly couldn't think at all of it, but I did as best as I could. I did try and track it down in so much that I've always basically from like 3, 4, 5, I've always been living in my head more so than in the actual real world, I guess. And, I would make sort of weird stories about my cuddly toys, for example, like how I had a panda from birth and he was an emperor of some land or something for some reason. And he went around executing people that he didn't like.
Sounds like an emperor. Yep.
How old were you when you had this panda?
16.
Well, I mean, I was given it from birth, but this story is probably like from 4 or 5, I guess.
Wow. I guess actually, as like you don't realize until you grow up and you see other kids experience it, but like kids are scary for this exact reason.
Well, no, it's a bit different. So when growing up in the 90s in the UK, it was the case that as a boy, when you're about 4 or 5, your life becomes one of 4 things. It's either defined entirely by trains, diggers, dinosaurs, or fighting. Like there's no in between. It's one of those 4 personality types.
Really?
I mean, I was dinosaurs and fighting.
Yeah, I was definitely a dinosaurs kind of guy.
Fair enough.
Sorry, we're digressing. We're talking about your early stories and your panda.
Yes, we were, weren't we? That's weird.
How you knew that you wanted to pursue writing professionally as you grew up?
So, I mean, fast forwarding quite a few years, I guess. And I don't know if either of you are aware of, like, you're not going to be because it's like super niche and super nerdy. But I mean, so yeah. So there was this thing called core wrestling, basically, which stands for Creator Wrestler Wrestling. And there was like a little community on YouTube around like 2007 to onwards, who like people, wrestling fans who used to create stories using video games, wrestling, like WWE video games.
Ooh.
And so you would record matches and you would make characters and you would voice the characters or you'd write text for it.
Would it be like machinima kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, like sort of basic machinima kind of thing.
Awesome. Okay,
I'm
going to check that out.
I don't know what the scene is like now because I stopped paying attention a long time ago. But I'm proud to say that I was somewhat known, which was good back in the day. And I did like organize an event that became pretty big. That was like a joint thing between like 50 different companies.
Oh, cool.
Quotation.
Yeah.
In the end. But so getting back to that. So you sort of develop your storytelling skills because there's decades of worth of wrestling storylines that you can A, plagiarize and B, improve on and make sure that you're not just doing something somebody else is doing. Mm-hmm. And my storylines tended to go towards more supernatural things for some reason. I had like a magician who could manipulate reality, because why not? I had a vampire, or two vampires, one that died because of a glitch in the game. I decided to roll with it.
All the punches, adapt.
Exactly. There's other stuff like that. And I sort of developed my storytelling skills without actually knowing that I wanted to be a storyteller at that time. I think it was a little later on when I was applying for university. I think this was a real sort of catalyst moment. And I sort of realized that I, A, didn't know what I wanted to be. And B, I realized that also I was more creatively inclined than anything else. Like I'm not totally not blowing my own horn, and we come back to it because it's important to me, I guess. But I was always pretty decent or good at school, and because of that, teachers always sort of take a certain viewpoint of you that you'll be good at like dry subjects like maths, and I was sort of pushed in sort of a law direction because that seemed like a good idea, and to me that's just hell.
As somebody who enjoys reading contracts, I understand and also wish that you liked it more.
I wish I did too, because it's hell. I don't know how you do it.
I think it's because I like poking holes in things. It's like, oh, terms and conditions apply, huh? Let me see that. Twist it to my will.
It's great living with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you probably have to have a certain mindset that you obviously have, and I don't. And I think it was at that point where I realized, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Well, I sort of sat down for, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Not anything like law or anything like mathematics or anything like that. Okay, cool. What do I like? Like writing stories, making stories. Sweet, let's do that. And by that point, I'd already had sort of ideas of different like universities and stuff, but I wasn't really taking seriously. But I think I just built up from that point, and then I took it forward. That's the short version, which probably went on for like too long anyway. But
no, that's perfect.
So now you're writing 3 different sort of things simultaneously that are also all intertwined, but you are obviously have more time to do it since you aren't working basically anywhere else, and your time is spent on this. So how are you managing to keep yourself motivated? Because I can imagine, my approach, if I had all the time in the world to do creative things, would be very torn between research, also in quotation marks, because time on YouTube is sometimes well spent, and actually making the thing and working towards what you're doing. Basically, how's your time management recently?
I mean, if I'm being honest, it's not great.
We like honesty.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I might as well be honest. I'll only be lying to you and whoever's listening, so that would be weird. But I've always had a procrastination issue, and going back slightly to the whole being good at school thing, I never had to try in school. And again, that's not me boasting, it's just stating a fact. And that means that because I never had to try, other people that did have to try got built up a work ethic that I wasn't able to at the time, which has, despite my best effort and despite the fact that I can trace this back, I've been psychoanalyzing myself for God knows how long, sometimes it still hits you or hits me, and you're staring at the page and you were staring at a particular paragraph that you may have left off the previous night, and you know exactly where you want to go with it, and you can't. Your fingers hover over the keyboard, and it's like, and it just, and then I start. Okay, I'll just a couple of minutes. I'll listen to some music, or I'll watch this video on YouTube, and then I'll come back to it, and it's all good. And then it's suddenly 3:00 in the morning, and you've watched a wrestling show for 2 hours, and you realize, I have to go to sleep now because I'm an idiot.
For me, it's the cycle of, I'm like, after I've got to that point, I can't be productive now. I'm too tired to do this thing that I want to do, and I can't do it to the standard that it would have to be for it to be successful. So I'll go to sleep and we'll start fresh tomorrow. And terrified of that becoming like an infinite cycle for myself. But you sometimes struggle with blank pages, Alex.
Definitely. Particularly when it comes to weekends, I overpressure myself into writing. So I still work a full-time job. So my evenings and the weekends are pretty much the only time I get to work, unless I really want to annoy my colleagues and just completely disregard my contract. But it's like I said, I feel I build it up too much and I end up pressuring myself onto it, and it's not an enjoyable task / hobby / escape from reality for a bit, because very much like you, I do have all these worlds in my head in different genres and things. So you mentioned yours is quite heavily based around supernatural stuff. You seem to gear towards every now and then. For me, it's very sort of dark underside sides of sort of humanity and things, and working out where a twist can be in a very generic event. And I will quite often just sit there for an hour or two, and I'll write maybe 5 or 6 sentences, delete the whole thing, start again, or I'll just end up jotting down random words and seeing if any of them spark anything. But it's only recently, I say recently, relatively recently, that I've started to learn it's okay to not write every single day, and it's okay to not write the exact thing I want to be writing at the weekend. So like you, I've got multiple projects on the go. Just because I'm not writing one of them this weekend, but I am still dabbling on another one, does not mean that I've not progressed anything. I've not let myself down or anything like that. And I have to keep telling myself that. I don't know if you get the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I do beat myself up a lot, quite a bit about if I don't write. In February, which is when start of February, I left in end of January, but I created an Excel spreadsheet, basically keeping a track of how many words I've written each day, how much money I'm spending, just to keep track of my expenses, and push-ups as well, because I'm a lazy ass and I need to keep track of everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
And so, going through it, I set myself a target of 3,000 words a day, which was just ludicrously optimistic.
Yeah.
And I've literally only matched that twice. So I made like a thing where it colors it like green or red, depending on whether I've matched my target for that day or not. I have 2 greens.
Wow.
Since the start of February.
That sounds like a big blow to self-esteem.
Yeah, but sure,
self-inflicted.
But then it gets to the bit where you open that document and you are subconsciously just constantly thinking about it's going to be red again today. I'm going to do red again today. Is that maybe not the most beneficial way of doing it? Have you changed it up since you started it, or have you revised the number of words that you're trying to hit each day?
I mean, the silly thing is, I guess, is that while I did write 3,000, I think I always knew that 2,000 was the real aim. Because I mean, I could be completely wrong. I did read like a quote from, I think it was Stephen King a while back, or it could have been somebody pretending to be Stephen King, I don't know, saying that if you want to be a novelist or a story writer, and I'm paraphrasing this obviously, you should be aiming to write 2,000 words a day, which is, I wrote 3,000 because I was thinking, okay, I'm not working anymore. I've got the whole day to myself. Let's go optimistic, and if I don't reach it, fine.
Yeah.
The problem is, like you said, sometimes it's just not realistic to think you're going to sit down and write, or you're going to write like four sentences, or you might write like 400 words or whatever it is that day, and your brain just decides, no more for you. And for whatever reason it is. And I feel like I don't want to sound I don't know if exclusionary is the right word, but I feel like people that haven't been through that won't understand how difficult it is to, because like 400 words doesn't sound like much in the grand scheme of things. If you're reading a book, 400 words is going to take you 30 seconds, a minute to get through.
But it's 400 words of quality that you're trying to get, and it's 400 words of progress. And by progress, I mean it's pushing the story forward, it's pushing the characters forward. It's adding new elements to the storyline. And I could write 400 words and just describe the table that they're sat around. Not a problem. That doesn't add anything, and no one's going to really want to read a Dickensian paragraph about the quality of the oak staining and the varnish. It's.
I found that really quite interesting. One of the sort of interviews that sticks out in my mind, and I think you're right. I think it was Stephen King who said that, because I was watching. Obviously, I was on YouTube, and I was watching an interview where George R.R. Martin is speaking with Stephen King, and George says to Stephen, "Are you supposed to? Is it formal to do surnames?" Oh well. Anyway.
Martin says to King.
Martin says to King.
Which Martin Luther King are you talking about?
The Lutheran one.
Yeah.
But they say to it, like he says, "How do you write so many books?" And because he has a huge procrastination problem, he still hasn't finished Game of Thrones properly, I don't think. And Stephen King's just like, yeah, I just write every single day. I write at least 3 pages, and I don't care what it is. I just write it down. And I wonder if, obviously, both of them are successful writers. And I just want to encourage both of you, because, I mean, Stephen, I haven't read your work yet, but I'm excited for it. The way you describe it sounds really exciting and interesting, and I'm like, "Oh, I want to read this. I want to see what happens with this train tunnel explosion."
Okay, so we're going to go back into a previous conversation that we've had before, which is it is intimidating to set yourself targets like that, and then to share it. And if you've written something that deep down is, "Oh, I'm writing 2,000 words a day because I always write 2,000 words a day, and I don't care what it is." To actually get to the stage where you don't care what you've written, that just feels wrong to me.
But that's kind of what I mean. This obviously, you guys are actually the writers, and if I tried to write a book and I decided I'm going to write something, it's obviously not going to be very good. I'm not a writer. I've no inclination to make it good, if that makes sense. But one thing that I say to Alex about his writing is that, especially with sharing it online, it's not really for you yourself as the writer to decide how good it is, because ultimately you're putting it out there for people to enjoy. But I guess you have to like it on your own first.
Yeah, there's a weird sort of catch-22 with it of, why would I share something I'm not happy with? But also, I am my own worst critic, and surely other people would want to see this. I mean, the amount of things that pop up on algorithms for Netflix and YouTube and stuff that I just have no interest in, but it's got 100,000 views or 1 million views. Clearly, someone is interested. So it's not my choice as to what people think is good or not. So I do need to share it. But at the same time, if I put it out there and I'm not happy with it, have I let myself down in that regard? And that's a problem I need to deal with, and that's a hurdle I have to get over. And I think I'm getting better at it. I am sharing more and more widely.
I'm happy about that for you.
Yeah.
How is it for you, Stephen, sharing your work? Well, actually, I don't think you've you haven't sent me a link to your stuff yet or anything like that.
Oh, yeah, because nobody's seeing it until I'm happy with it.
Stephen's on my side. See, it's all good.
I'm not,
Okay.
But okay. I just want you both to be successful, because I enjoy you both as people. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do totally get what you mean. And I think you're 100% correct. But again, like Alex was saying, this is a difficulty with being happy and content with it within yourself.
Yeah.
And there's 2 levels to that. In that, there's one level where I can see that, sometimes as I'm writing a novel, I'll lose interest with it, but I'll still continue it. And eventually the interest might come back or it might not. But so on one level, it's like, okay, maybe some people aren't going to like the themes in this book. Maybe I'm not even enjoying the themes at the moment, but other people will, and I can accept that. There's the other side of it where I'm reading like a page and I think, wow, this is actually really good. Holy hell, how did I write this? And then you get to the next page and it's like, oh boy,
yeah,
this would never get published in a million years. How did I churn this rubbish out? And it's that side of it where it's not even being content with the characters or the themes or whatever else. It's actually being content with the grammar and the structure and the flow the timeline and how things are framed and everything like that. And to sort of digress a tiny bit, I did write some poetry I came across a competition like years ago, like 5-7 years ago, whatever it was. And I hate poetry. I hate poetry. Whenever it was asked in literature class, what are the themes of this? I was like, my brain's just, gone, completely dead. So I didn't care at all about the quality of the poetry I was writing. I just wanted to submit it because I want to get something finished and done and sent off. And I didn't care about people seeing it or reading it, and everybody that saw it thought it was good. And that completely caught me off guard because it's like, okay, I don't understand poetry in the slightest. I don't see how it can be good, but cool. But because I didn't care, it was cool that I could show people, and it's fine. Yeah. Because I care about my actual stories. It's like, so I'm always going to have that side of me that's like, no.
I don't know if perhaps some of it is to do with I just don't want to get criticism on it from someone that I respect. I don't know if that's something that maybe plays into my mind about it as well. I know for a fact, and having worked with 9-to-5s, in editorial and publishing and things, I have to get criticism on something to be able to improve it. Yeah. But when it's, you're something that you're so deeply enamored with, and, you want to be the defining feature or the starting block for what could potentially turn into a career where you support yourself, is terrifying to basically hand it to someone and say, tear this to shreds for me and tell me where to improve.
Yeah, I mean, you actually brought up a sort of point that reminded me. Where I was working, I wrote some like funding applications for funding for projects that we did. And obviously it's not the same thing as writing a novel, but there are some similar skills in that you have to get a point across in a succinct manner while describing why you need this money, basically, and how it will help people, and et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't mind my manager, who I'm friends with anyway, so it's all cool. I didn't mind her having a look over it and changing things and what have you. I didn't mind my colleagues changing things, because at the end of the day, it may have meant that somebody lost their job or not, but it went through or not. But beyond that, on a personal level, I didn't care about whether somebody criticized the quality of it, basically, because it was an impersonal task beyond funding coming in.
I have it every single day where something gets sent back to me from a client saying, don't like the sound of that. Okay, fine. It's that. Thanks for pointing that out. I will make sure that going forward, I don't word it in that way or phrase it like that or whatever. And it's nothing personal in any way, shape or form. And it's then being able to bring that to my own writing and have that own conversation with myself about sharing my own work. I don't see why it should be any different, but mentally, for some reason, I've got this pedestal on it or something.
I think it's because, it doesn't mean I'm right or this applies to everybody. I think it's because whatever you're writing, you're leaving a piece of yourself in it. Mm-hmm. A piece of yourself is coming out onto paper as you're writing it. Even if it's something you feel like you don't care about, there's going to be something of you in it. So if somebody's criticizing it, despite the fact that it doesn't make sense or it doesn't mean that it's true, it can feel like they're criticizing you as a person or your interests or themes that are dear to you or that you feel like you want to get out. And even if on a subconscious level, even if on a surface level you're not actually thinking that, it can play sort of havoc with your self-confidence, and which is annoying because every writer wants to get their stuff published. And we all know, or most of us know, I guess, that it will get criticized, and you probably will get torn to shreds on Twitter at some point.
No, Twitter's really friendly.
Of course, it's a hive of kindness and no, I can't even think.
But yeah, I think it's. I think I have that with music, so much so to the point where I can't really pick up instrumentation around other people, even my future husband right here.
You were literally asking me earlier this morning, could I maybe go away for 2 weeks so you can write music without me being nearby?
Yeah, the 2 weeks was definitely a joke, I think. But I was remembering basically how Oh no, not remember. I was just listening to some music in the background, but I was being very like mindful about it. I was really listening to the instrumentation and I just found it so interesting, and I missed making music, and I was like, I would really like to do this again. But then I turned around and you were sat on the couch, and I was like, I can't really pick up an instrument right now. It's
okay. I'll make a deal with you. I will put something online today to share for the world, and you've got to pick up the guitar.
That doesn't. I'm gonna say no. Thanks for the offer.
Oh, okay. I tried.
Yeah, you tried.
I think, like, from the perspective of somebody who isn't a writer, like and I have this with my art. It's very easy to put my like little cute doodles and whatever up online because I know that I'm not a very good artist, and I also know that people probably aren't going to take it very seriously. However, if I think about the way you guys are describing your writing when compared to my music, I can understand the fear to some extent. But I'm always the reason that I feel so strongly about people sharing their writing, or I guess Alex in particular sharing his writing, is because if E.L. James can write 50 Shades of Grey and it gains the popularity that it does, it's so unfair that beautiful works made by people like you guys aren't getting shown to the world. And we have to unfortunately then be subjected to writing like that by E.L. James, as opposed to
I did read some of 50 Shades of Grey, to be honest.
I honestly think that there's better Harry Potter fan fiction online than 50 Shades of Grey.
I know you're saying that as a joke, but there is some fan fiction out there that is legitimately like a modern classic. It's fantastic,
and which is so unfair.
I mean,
but
a good 95% of it is just you need to turn off the internet for the day, and I really wish that I could unlearn reading. But there's I say in jest and stuff, but there's when things like that happen, you see a lot of the passion that comes out from people, and you see a lot of the interest that come out. And although we're just making a joke about that, whatever, there are people out there. There is an audience for it that legitimately really loves it and enjoys it. And who are we or I to stand in the way of that? Because I ended up I've read SpongeBob fan fiction before, and it was so funny.
Really?
Someone was basically just writing their own episodes and things.
That's so sweet.
And it was it was not suitable for Nickelodeon, but it sort of started going into sort of like Always Sunny territory of like Patrick and SpongeBob just turning into these awful people. But it was, I need to remember who wrote that, but it was just, I loved it. I thought it was really, really funny.
If we find it, it'll be in the show notes. But
I mean, similarly, sorry to interrupt. I just I read some really good Digimon fan fiction. And
like it.
And the funny thing is, there is some good fan fiction out there, and I think it is. I'm not gonna say it's important to read fan fiction, but I think it is part of like a wider sort of range of. If you want to be a writer, I think it's important to read various different genres and from various different novelists and authors and what have you, just to see what techniques they're using and what they're not using, how they implement certain things, and even fan fiction can be a source of that. Like vast majority of it, God no. But there are a couple.
It sharpens your taste to a certain extent, because if you read something and you don't like it, you can kind of look at it and figure out why you don't like it. And if you read something else and you say, wow, this is really impressive, I want my work to make me feel like this or make others feel like this. It's a good way to learn to do it.
Sorry.
And also just build a community around literature and reading and making fan fiction or your own original stuff. It's just really nice to have somewhere to do that.
So I tend to do a thing where I will read something from fiction and then something non-fiction, something fiction, something non-fiction. I tend to just do that to keep things fresh, but that's also because the historian in me will never die, and I still love reading history books, as boring as they can be. It's important to read things that you are not used to reading, and it's important to read things beyond what's been recommended to you. A couple of months ago, I read something that just came up from an algorithm of recommended for you. It was two things on there that were bestsellers, and I would just consider them. I sort of described them as airport trash books that you sort of pick up on the way to holiday to read by the side of the pool. You don't really care if the pages get wet or anything. I powered through and I finished them, and I'm glad I finished them. I just really did not enjoy them in any way, shape, or form. But I know exactly what I dislike about them to make sure that I'm not doing that in my own writing. And it's okay to dislike stuff, but know why you dislike it and utilize why you dislike it into making your own stuff better. You know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I totally agree with that, and that actually brought up some traumatic memories of
I'm so sorry.
Reading, reading Ian McEwan books. Like, okay. I mean, I don't want to go on a podcast just to criticize people. So I'll just say that I absolutely despise every single word I've read in the Ian McEwan book.
But do you know why you dislike it, though?
I do know what. Well, I did know. I think I've purged it from my memory at this point. but I did go over it. I did analyze it, and I did sort of work out why I disliked it and why I didn't want to incorporate the same sort of techniques and ways that his characters spoke and interacted with their world, and the lack of humor and lack of levity and taking itself too seriously, despite the situation being completely sort of bizarre. And yeah, so I did understand why I didn't like it. And I think, like you said, it's important to, even if you're reading something that you absolutely hate, if you sort of pick apart afterwards and you say, okay, I like this, I didn't like this. In my writing, I don't want to copy this because I don't think it works. But even if you don't like something, you can still pick up good parts about it, whether it's the way they use grammar or structure or whatever else it may be. You can still pick up some things that are decent or good and that you can implement in your own work.
So for me, one of my biggest struggles when it comes to writing is speech and conversation. I don't feel I'm great at portraying dialogue in an easy and flowing manner.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Yeah, very much. Oh, hi, Mark. Yeah,
I did not hit her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was just classic, but yeah. If you haven't watched The Room, go and watch it.
I haven't watched The Room.
I haven't watched it either.
Oh dear. Okay. All right. Go make yourself some popcorn and be prepared for the most amazing bad film of all time.
This was one of my 2020 plans that I missed out on. I was going to go. There's a. It
was on the cinema, wasn't it?
In Leicester Square. Yeah. There's a tiny cinema which they put The Room on every week or something, or every month, and there's like a club around it and everything.
Yeah.
Supposed to go to that one time with a friend, and we just never did. One reason or another. So.
Can't wait till it opens back up again. It'll be one of the first things I see this year.
Pressing.
So yeah, but I know that I'm not amazing at writing loads and loads of speech, but I have found a technique that I absolutely love for portraying conversations from my characters' points of views and things. And I wouldn't have managed to find that way of doing it if I wasn't reading things outside of my comfort zone, or if I was just wasn't reading things that were just mainstream popular. So I suppose the prime example of it would be The Collector by John Fowles. It's this book that's written kind of in two halves of his point of view and then her point of view, and it's written almost like a police statement from his side of things, and a sort of a diary journal entry from her side. I started doing that, and then I ended up reading Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, and his has taken it even a step further, where entire conversations between multiple people don't have any speech marks or indications to who is talking, to sort of show the chaos of certain conversations. And that's obviously a technique that a lot of people really did not like, because it requires a lot of willpower to try and work out who is saying what. But you wouldn't know about it unless you experienced it and tried it for yourself. And for me, it clicked, and I really liked that idea. And I thought, I'm going to try that myself, and I've really enjoyed it. But it just comes back to you've got to read things outside of what you would normally read.
Are you getting feedback from anyone in particular about what you're writing so far?
No. No, there's a short answer for that. I really want to get to a certain point, and I've already spoken to a friend from work, my previous workplace, and she said she wants to read it once I've got to a certain point. So, I'll let her read it, and I know she'll be objective, and she's not going to like eviscerate it. So I can trust her to like read over it and give it like an objective eye, and I'll be fine with that. And I'm just sort of gearing myself up to the inevitable moment where she asks me for the upteenth time, "Hey, Stephen, are you ready to show it to me yet?" And I run out of excuses and can no longer say no. But I know full well that you need to have people look at it, because at the end of the day, it's going to be in the public domain anyway if you want to get it published, or try to anyway. And you need to be prepared for criticism. You need to be not just criticism for the sake of it, but criticism that will help you sort of in your second or third draft just change things up and try and adjust things accordingly. And it's getting over that mental hurdle that I know that I will have to do. But again, knowing that you're going to have to do something is one thing, and actually doing it is a entirely different prospect, unfortunately.
Most people, the vast majority of people, they're not criticizing because they want to upset you. They want to help and improve it. And much as we've been talking about how there are things that you dislike and don't like, it's going to be the same for them. They're not always going to be a massive fan of everything that you've created, but if they're the right sort of person, they should always support what you've created.
We were actually saying this in the previous episode.
Yeah.
Your work is very dark.
I'm fully aware. Yeah.
And I am not necessarily your ideal audience, but I like the way that it's written. And I think you can tell the quality of that. But even then, I feel like it's difficult to get feedback from people when you don't share your work. So I guess you're basically your only critic at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a very fun occupation. It's like you don't get paid for it, and you hate yourself after.
Oh, damn.
I do that for free anyway, don't worry.
Are you planning to finish your work kind of in its entirety as a first draft before you share it, or?
Yeah, I'm aiming for. I told myself I'm going to get a first draft of actually second story that wasn't the one I described earlier, because I've reached like a point in that where I couldn't go any further, so I put it on the back burner for a bit. But I'm hoping to get this one done by the end of June, the first draft at any rate. Then I'll hand it over to her, and she can have a look over it. I might ask her to get her son to have a look at it as well, because he doesn't hold back from criticizing me. But I think he would enjoy it as well, hopefully. Although now that I think about it, some of the themes might be a bit too. I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. But he either sees it or not, and then they can come back to me with it. And then there's another colleague as well that said he'd like to have a look over it as well. But he's more on a sort of editorial, sort of grammatical side rather than actually taking an interest in the story. If you see what I mean. So once she's come back with that, I'll probably aim to take whatever criticism she gives and sort of adjust but accordingly. And then in theory, then I'd hand it over to him after the second draft and then see what he says and then go from there. But that's all ideal scenario stuff I'm talking about. Unfortunately, the course of creativity, or my creativity, doesn't tend to go as smoothly as that. So whether I actually stick to those deadlines or not is another matter entirely. But that is my aim at the moment. And once
if we invite you back on for September, will that give you enough time? We'll go for an update. An update in September.
I've said to myself, it's not exactly September, but I've said to myself, if I haven't got it done by the end of the year, then I'm never going to do it. And I think it sort of stands to reason September is sort of a similar case as well, because again, I'm not working at the moment, so I have all these hours, and if somehow I've still contrived not to be able to at least finish the first draft, and I basically just have to accept it's never going to happen. And then that's a conversation I have to have with myself and go from there. But hopefully I won't have to come September, and I can come on and say everything's sunshine and rainbows, and I'm looking for an agent, and all's good in the world. But don't really know. I don't have the power of foresight. So,
So is that something that you planned from the beginning, or like did you give yourself a year to really try this thing fully before you kind of know it's not the right thing to go for? Or
the thing is, I 110% want to be a writer. I've also, it's funny for you, I set 2020 as I bought a shoulder mount camera for £800, and I said, okay, I'm going to start filming stuff in 2020 summer. It's going to be great, and then that didn't.
Welcome back to my room.
It was so depressing, that. But yeah. So, but when I left work, I did say to myself, look, I'm going to have all this time. I know I have problems with procrastination. 110%, this is what I want to do in my life. But honestly, if I can't do it by the end of the year, then something has gone wrong. And I just have to accept that there's something wrong with me and my approach to work and such like, and it's not going to happen. And I think at this point I have to be truthful with myself, because I've wanted to write for a long time. I started stories and not finished them. Like, there's so many. Like, I got to like 190,000 words in one, like 4 years ago or something, and then completely abandoned it, which is just awful. And so it's just basically being honest with myself. There's no point lying to yourself, because then you're just tricking yourself, and there's no point.
Yeah. As somebody who is lied to herself about lots of things, it wastes a lot of time, because if you believe the lie for long enough, you don't realize that you don't have anything to support kind of the belief that you have in your head about what's going on. Well, at least that's what I found. Eventually you have to face the truth at some point, and it's not always nice, which is a shame.
You can waste years just telling yourself over and over again, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, or whatever it is that you're telling yourself. I'm going to make the perfect, I've got to say symphony for some reason. But
yeah, go for symphony. Yeah,
yeah, sure. But like you said, it's just you're wasting your own time. You're wasting hours and days and months and years of whether it's staring at a computer screen and writing stuff that's never going to see the light of day and it's never going to go anywhere. I feel like you have to, I don't know whether it's just your general life or creative endeavors or whatever, but you just have to sit down and you have to think about yourself and think about where you are as a person, and how you as an individual, not as like a human, as part of 1,000 or 1,000,000, you as an individual can build towards achieving what you want to achieve, because we're all different. As much as we are the same in lots of different ways, I guess, but we respond to stimuli in different ways. We have our own hang-ups and neuroses and all that rubbish. And I feel like you have to accept that in order to get to where you want to be, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. You've got to let your own personality shine through as well. Is there anywhere that you want to plug yourself, like social media or anything? If there's something for people to follow you on? Or
well, at the moment, I've taken a conscious choice not to have any social media.
Cool.
I was, the funny thing is, and again, 2020 screwed it over, but I was going to make a concerted push to start filming stuff and getting on YouTube and make like a proper, not a proper production company, but a proper sort of logo and what have you, and tagline and all that crap.
Branding.
But obviously, again, didn't happen. But I am hopefully looking to do that, because what I'm planning to do is I'm trying to figure out a way of doing sort of radio plays in the form of podcast, maybe, and try and see how that would work. And once I've done that, then I'll sort of try and reignite the idea. And again, if there's opportunities to film, I'd like to do that. And then once I've done that, then so like in September, if we do this again, hopefully by that point, I'd have like a YouTube page up and running, and I have something to show for my work. But
we'll do the plugs then.
Yeah, there you go. But who knows what's going to happen in the intervening months? So we'll see.
Thank you, Stephen, for joining us on the Flawed Workshop Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to one day be able to read what you've written, and maybe we'll have you back at the end of the year to share your progress and all the exciting things that you've got going.
Sure. I mean, it could either go really well and I'm like super happy and chuffed with everything I've done and like everything's great, or I'm in a state of depression and the world is gloomy and dark and black.
Either way, that's great content.
Well, I was going to say something similar, except that I would call it a learning experience rather than great content.
It's such a wonderful person, Alex.
Stephen, it's been great to have you on. Thank you very much.
I have been Nancy Art Music. You can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Nancy Art Music. Alex, where can we find you?
I'm Alex Roberts, and you can find me on Instagram at Alex Roberts Writer, and you can find my first collection of poetry, Empire, on Amazon.
And of course, a huge thank you to you, the listener, for making it all the way through to the end of this podcast. And if you are here at the end, we would really, really appreciate if you could follow this podcast on Spotify, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe to the channel for more content, both from the Flawed Workshop Podcast and me, Nancy Art Music. Once again, a huge thank you, and we'll see you next week. Bye!